Shalom from Israel. I'm Hananya Naftali with the latest update from the Middle East. All right, let's get right into it. Syria is on fire again. Over 1,300 people killed in just 72 hours. The coastal regions of Tartus and Latakia are soaked in blood. Entire families executed, bodies piled in the streets. Christians are hiding in fear, not knowing if they'll survive the night. And here's the twist. The Alawites, Assad's own people, are now so desperate that they're turning to Israel, their sworn enemy, for help. You can't make this stuff up. But first of all, let me break down what's happening for you and who these Alawites are. The Alawites are a small sect of Shia Islam that makes up about 10% of Syria's population. For decades, they've run the show in Syria, thanks to Bashar al-Assad and his father before him, who were also Alawites. They controlled the military, the secret police, everything. And they've always been hostile to Israel. Why? Because the Assad regime needed an enemy to rally the people around. Classic dictatorship playbook. They backed Hezbollah. They let Iran, they basically sold to Iran, letting Iran ship weapons through their country, funding terrorism against Israel. But now that Assad is gone, the Alawites have lost their iron grip on Syria, and suddenly those who once chanted death to Israel in Syria are now looking to the Jewish state for a lifeline. They just now issued a message. Listen to this. This is amazing. They issued a message for the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the Foreign Minister, saying, "Save us from the cruel regime. We will welcome you with songs and flowers." What songs and what flowers? Listen, if you spend decades backing terror groups that want to destroy Israel, don't be shocked when it flips on you. But I have to say, putting culture groups aside, it's heartbreaking to see what's going on there. Because it's actually not just the Alawites who are suffering. Christians in Syria are being slaughtered too. Before the war, about 10% of Syria's population was Christian. Greek Orthodox, Catholics, Armenians, you name it. Now, less than 2% remain. And listen, before filming this video, I've talked to Christians who say their families back in Syria are living in constant fear, waiting for the knock at the door, praying it doesn't come. It's really bad. The situation right now is that believers are killed for their faith, and the world barely blinks. The same people who call Israel an apartheid state can't seem to find the words to condemn actual religious cleansing happening right next door. If you are silent when Christians are slaughtered in Syria, but scream apartheid at Israel, you are not an activist. You are a hypocrite. Evil doesn't stop being evil just because it's inconvenient to call it out. After 53 years of Assad family rule, Syria's new leader, Ahmad al-Julani, promised peace and stability. Instead, we got one of the deadliest outbreaks of violence since the civil war started. More than 830 civilians, mostly Alawites, were killed in what's being called the biggest massacre in years. Revenge killings, firing squads, and bodies dumped in the streets. And here's the point that we can't forget. Al-Julani leads Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, a group with roots in terror groups. The fact that they just now put, a new coat with a new paint, a new name, but it's underneath the same radical ideology. And now they're running the show. So forgive me if I don't buy the peace and stability talk. Swapping one set of tyrants for another is not liberation. It's just a different flavor of oppression. But here's where things get really wild. With Assad gone, the Alawites are terrified of being wiped out by the new Islamist rulers because Assad was an Alawite himself. So what do? They reach out to Israel for help. Yes, the same Israel they spent decades demonizing. Reports say that Alawite leaders are secretly asking for humanitarian aid and maybe even some protection. We saw the public message. But this is the ultimate proof that for all the propaganda, Israel is seen, even by its enemies, as the only stable moral force in the region. When the chips are down, they don't turn to their fellow Muslims in Iran for help. They turn to the Jewish state. Weird, right? But what's even more weird is how quickly the world loses its voice when Arabs kill other Arabs. Ever thought about it? Just earlier this month, al-Julani, the new ruler in Syria, was shaking hands with the UN chief like he's a legit statesman. Meanwhile, his fighters were busy executing minorities in Syria's coastal regions, leaving streets piled with bodies. Not a single UN resolution, no emergency sessions, no global outrage. It seems like the world's moral compass just takes a coffee break when victims aren't convenient enough. But the moment Israel defends itself, whether it's stopping rockets from Gaza or targeting Iranian proxies in Syria or Lebanon, suddenly the whole world starts hyperventilating about war crimes or disproportionate force. You know, all that usual BS. The hypocrisy isn't just staggering, it's dangerous. This double standard doesn't just smear Israel's name, it emboldens the worst actors in the region. With the approval stamp of the UN, of all these international bodies that carry human rights like it's their child or something. When the UN rolls out the carpet, the red carpet, for someone like al-Julani, while condemning Israel for defending its citizens, it sends a clear message. Terrorism is negotiable, but Jewish self-defense is not. Listen, the same leaders who can't find the words to condemn the slaughter of Christians and Alawites in Syria have no problem slamming Israel every chance they get. Maybe the real crime in their eyes is that Israel exists at all. Because, I mean, if you ever need a proof that anti-Israel bias is real and a toxic thing, just look at who's getting invited to shake hands at the UN these days. This is exactly, by the way, why Israel is holding military positions in Syria. Because we learned the hard way that waiting for the world to do the right thing is a fool's game. After the October 7 massacre, when Iranian-backed terrorists butchered civilians on our own soil, Israel's strategy became crystal clear, and I believe that it changed in a drastic way, more than what we see above the surface. But the strategy is crystal clear. We are going to neutralize threats before they even reach our borders. The world might turn a blind eye to radicalism in Syria, but Israel doesn't have that luxury. Self-defense is not just a right, it's a duty. And by the way, with everything that we're seeing in Syria, which I mentioned, I think it's very tragic. I also think that Israel should help the Christians in Syria. I think that it's a historic chance to build an alliance with them, to create friends for the Jewish state in Syria, on top of the alliance that Israel seems to build with the Syrian Druze. By the way, Israel has its own Druze community, which is about 100,000 people. But, you know, I think that it's just insane to see how Israel's enemies trust us, trust the Israeli army more than their own allies. It says a lot about who's really on the right side of history here. Now, with everything happening, let's bring a bit of the Bible into this, because in Isaiah 17, it says, "Behold, Damascus will cease to be a city and will become a heap of ruins." Watching the chaos in Syria, it's hard not to think about it. I mean, I've mentioned this Bible verse several times. It seems to be relevant every time something crazy is happening in Syria. But I think that maybe this is a wake-up call, because to me, it's a reminder that the Bible's warnings aren't just ancient words on a page. They're playing out before our eyes. If you're looking for proof that the Bible is true, just turn on the news. I mean, you see the Bible everywhere. So what's next for Syria? The future, to be honest, looks pretty bad, because The interim government is talking about investigations and unity. They're saying all the right words to the international community. The exact words that the UN, the EU, and all their friends want to hear. Investigations, unity, social justice. But the Syrian government is talking about that, while at the same time you've got firing squads in the streets of Syria. Talk is cheap. The truth is, with radical Islamists in charge, the only thing Syrians can expect, unfortunately, is more bloodshed. And let's not forget Iran. After losing both Assad and Nasrallah, the regime is trying to find new ways to base itself in Syria and Lebanon, all with the aim to basically exploit these countries and turn them into launching pads of attacks against Israel. And the last thing we need for Syria is to become Iran's new playground. The world needs to stop pretending that Islamists can bring peace to Syria. That's like expecting a pyromaniac to put out a fire. You don't negotiate with arsonists. You put out that fire. That's exactly what Israel is doing. Look, the Middle East is one big mess. But one thing is clear. Israel is the only country in this region that's not falling apart. So, if you want the truth about what's happening in Syria and in the rest of the Middle East, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss any update. And for those of you that really want to stay connected 24/7 to know what's happening in Israel, in Syria, in the Middle East, be sure to join my Telegram channel. I'm putting there real updates, real time, not censored. And also don't forget to check out the IsraelStore.com. When you shop there, you're not just getting great products. You're helping to fight BDS and stand up to anti-Israel haters. So, thanks for watching. And as always, stay strong, stay informed,